What are some of the most toxic or potentially dangerous ideas, beliefs that have been perpetuated by Redditors? One example of this: a medical doctor posts a well-written comment about the dangers of overprescribing antibiotics. Top comment of the thread: tons of awards. Later, a second-year med student posts a similar comment. Still well written, but maybe misses a few key points specifying how and why. Again, top comment of the thread: gilded to the nines. Later, a college freshman bio major writes a pretty bad summary of the situation, but it's part of the Reddit hive mind echo chamber, so anyone who bothers to correct him gets misinterpreted and downvoted. And so on until someone literally tells Emmy they read on Reddit that taking antibiotics is dangerous and will lead to a super disease that will wipe out humanity. Come on, Reddit. Reddit has a tendency to label people toxic and encourage relationship advice that isn't great. That people who use Reddit are somehow superior or more in the know about things than people who don't. You'll read comments and think, whoa, these people know so much about this topic. But then a topic will come up that you have expertise in, and you'll realize that people on this site just pull answers out of their ass with confidence. Also, after enough time here, you'll start to realize the average demo is on the young side and has very little life experience. Keep that in mind when you scroll through the comments. Think about the subjects that you have an immense amount of knowledge about. Maybe you've spent your whole life studying it. Now think about all the times you've seen a well-written comment on Reddit with thousands of upvotes that is completely and verifiably wrong. Now think about all the subjects you know nothing about, and all the times you've learned something from a well-written comment with thousands of upvotes. Worshipping celebrities. 10-year-olds don't need to receive death threats because he's never heard of a 55-year-old actor. Everyone is an armchair psychologist. You post about feeling sad sometimes and inevitably someone is like, that's because you have atypical depression and bipolar disorder or whatever. Fetishization of mental illness. So many posts that reach the front page talking about depression, anxiety and even suicide. Look, I get it's tough. I've been there myself. But it seems like people on this site are more content to stew in their own misery and blame society for not taking their problems seriously, rather than getting serious help or doing something about it. I mean, how in the hell are other people supposed to take your issue seriously when even you won't? If your partner does anything at all that you dislike, you should dump them. Take them to the police. Avoid all other partners in the future, etc, etc. Particularly prevalent in relationships. Relationship advice. I'm with asshole and even just ask Reddit itself. It's rather appalling. And it seems to be pushed by people who have no idea what being in a relationship is actually like. It's not ducking easy basically. You want to love something and be in a completely committed relationship? Prepare to fight for it. Because it is not easy. Witch hunts and doxing are okay if the average Reddit user doesn't like the target. Too many people unknowing assimilate into the hive mind. Like, if you start to agree with all the most upvoted posts every day, and get angry upset when someone makes a valid point against what is clearly correct, to Reddit, it's time to back away slowly. RMI asshole used to be a great place where you could get an honest opinion on whether or not an action you took makes you an asshole. Sometimes you still might get an honest comment or two. But the amount of times where I've seen it, responses get removed or downvoted to oblivion, while others are screaming NTA. They shouldn't have been slightly mean to you if they didn't want to get murdered. Exaggeration, but I'm shocked half the time I'll look at the comments. Edit. Some hours after this comment, this beauty got posted. Basically a bunch of kids telling an irresponsible homeless person who probably made a child with another adult that it's too bad. I'm not being a father. Overwhelming NTA. The general belief that how an idea is presented is more important than what is being said. I can't count the number of times I've seen bullet conjecture with clean grammar get upvoted past someone who actually knows what the duck they're talking about from direct experience but can't spell for shite. The Boston Marathon bomber. Reddit started a whole storm by identifying a missing person as one of the bombers. Sunil Tripathi was the innocent person that got mistaken for one of the bombers. There was a lot of fallout and users tracking down family members, friends and even high-profile news people sending out messages that it could be the bomber. Stereotyping, in general, seems rampant. Many comments and posts seem to believe that individuals are incapable of independent thought and just reflect the race, religion, gender, ethnicity, group, nationality, political party, subreddit culture they belong to. People are varied even within ideologies. Argue points and issues, not identities. That everything works like a dichotomy. The amount of needless contempt that arises just because of an incessant need to turn issues into right versus left or the likes is stupid. I see people back up harmful beliefs just because it's what the majority of their opposition opposes. I'm not saying that I'm above any form of tribalism or that certain issues aren't more attributed to one side than the other, but people just need to stop prioritizing political identity over the argument at hand. Upvoting, downvoting. It was supposed to be used for this. Upvote what contributes to the conversation. Downvote what doesn't. Instead it's used as a like-dislike button, which makes this entire place one giant toilet. Hating an entire nation, or assuming that all its citizens are equally as bad just because a certain individual, or a specific group of people in power who belongs to that nation are jerks. Glorification of selfishness. I get the impression a ton of people on this site have difficulty asserting themselves, or recognizing or setting their own boundaries, because Reddit is full of advice geared toward people with these problems. What these posters seem to forget is that not everyone is codependent with self-esteem through the floor, and yet anytime anyone wants to get out of something that someone else wants them to do, Reddit leaps to no is a complete sentence. Put yourself first. Don't jade. In real life though, maintaining healthy relationships requires sometimes doing things you aren't thrilled about for others' sake. To an extent, Reddit plays a role in the growing anti-intellectualism. There seems to be a large assumption that this is a website of experts and lengthy replies must be credible. I saw a fellow Redditor describe it perfectly. You finally realize how little most Redditors know when they start talking about a topic you happen to be well researched in. I see this in two places primarily. Topics about public education. I am a middle school teacher. And topics such as anti-vaccine. I understand Reddit hates anti-vax for good reason, but it is also stuck in the old anti-vaxxers are just stupid stereotype. Instead of educating and helping the problem, they just poke fun. This unfortunately drives more anxious parents toward anti-vax communities. A little empathy, understanding, and education would do more to combat ideologies such as anti-vaccines than anything Reddit actually does. Some people here don't think cats can have salami. Racism directed at Asian people is incredibly acceptable on Reddit. Love yourself before you love someone else. While the intention is good, some people take that a little bit too far. Having a disability is something to accept. This should however not mean that necessary or oral surgeries should not be done. Glorifying physical violence assault because someone said something disrespectful or mean to someone else. Edit. Never been given an award before. Thank you to the kind person who saw it fit to do so. That pretty much anything is an acceptable receptacle for cum. Threatening to kill a little kid because she plays Fortnite. Reddit is very much guilty until proven innocent. They will jump straight down the throat of any alleged criminal with zero facts, zero context, and demand they be sentences to years behind bars. Or worse, hell, they don't even care if it's the right guy, just that somebody be punished. Remember when Reddit found the Boston bomber and the guy ended up killing himself? I've been downvoted to hell for the simple comment along the lines of, more than maybe we should wait for all the evidence to come out. We don't know the whole story. Reddit is absolutely bloodthirsty. If you are a mod and you don't agree with something, you can ban them. Unpopular opinion here, but a lot of Redditors are pretty liberal, which is fine. But I feel that anything conservative or Christian based gets shut down and downvoted pretty fast. People like to crap on religion and conservative beliefs on here a lot. Edit. Thanks for the gold silver. Edit. To a lot of comments replying to this are actually proving my point. I have seen lots of discussions where a person is not shoving their religion in the other's face, but rather just simply stating from my POV as a Christian, which is appropriate in the context, and then will get downvoted and comments about how stupid they are and how God is this imaginary man and all Christians are delusional. Why is there no respect shown in our direction? Why can't someone realistically say that yes, religion has caused wars and negativity across the world, but your average Reddit user is just a person who needs religion to find comfort and peace? Just as atheists feel that not having religion gives them their own sense of peace, why crap on their idea of a god and everything they hold important? I haven't seen as much, if any, of that directed towards atheism from Christian posters. I am so ducking tired of this you mad bro culture that nerds love to spout. Apparently having emotion about something important to you means you immediately lose the argument, and I notice that 9 times out of 10, the person saying you mad bro is the one raging. Reddit does this thing where they only really care about male survivors abuse sexual assault if their attacker was a woman. Ever notice how you always see men who were assaulted by women? What's your story? Questions and not simply men who were assaulted. What's your story? In my personal opinion, I think it's because deep down Reddit really just wants to prove a point that it's not just men who commit those kinds of horrible crimes. That women can also do bad things. Which I guess there's some merit to that. But I just think when you frame it as a thread that's supposedly here to listen to men's stories and validate their experiences, it just comes off as disingenuous. If you want to make a let's get outraged about women doing bad things and getting away with it thread, go ahead. Just make it clear that that's your point. Also, anytime someone tries to point this out, they get absolutely grilled with stuff like, oh, so you don't care about male victims, huh? You're the reason men can't come forward with stuff like this. When really we're just trying to point out that if you really cared about male victims, be completely fine hearing about male victims who were abused by other men. Reddit is pretty misogynistic, and I say that as a man. You see so many posts about how one guy gets beaten by his girlfriend, or how one woman admits she falsely accused a guy of rape, and all of a sudden, it is supposed to equal the X 1000 times it happens to women. I am not saying getting hit or falsely accused of rape by a woman is nothing to get upset about. The abuse allegation in particular can ruin a life. But so does being raped, which happens 1,000 times more often. Edit. My this has exploded. Thank you so much for the awards. But please donate to a local charity that helps victims of domestic violence instead if you feel like awarding this post some more. To all the angry guys who commented and made my case so much better than I could ever have. Thank you too. Absolutely hating on those that deviate from the norm. Hating on people that conform to society's norms but not Reddit's norms. Hating on people trying to have fun or hobbies. MGTOW. Incels and nice guys Nisegurals. Like, the amount of stuff I've seen that made me feel physically sick with their mentality is just, wow. Example, I saw a post a few years ago where a girl was raped walking home. She ran off afterwards and jumped into a taxi to take her to the cops, and the taxi driver raped her too. The comments were full of things like she deserved it, that's what you get for being a slut, etc. Some of the most disgusting it I've seen. Edit. Fixed the asterisk problem. Thank you for telling me, guys. A little political. Particularly now in the run-up to US elections, you'll see people talking about how healthcare bankrupts European countries. Or that they can only afford healthcare because they don't pay as much for their military. In reality, the US government pays the most per capita for healthcare out of any government in the world, and also pays a higher percentage of its GDP than most European countries towards healthcare. If the lack of military payments were the only reason these countries could afford it, they'd be paying a larger percentage of their GDP than the US. Now, that doesn't mean the US should emulate European systems immediately and expect them to work. But it does mean people claiming this are talking straight out their ass. That the optimal solution to personal relationship issues is to end it, cut contact and or leave town. The most toxic thing is Reddit tries to break people apart, especially family. I have seen way often that the first course of action, and the most popular one, are of separation. Man from wife or vice versa, or rift between parent-child. My argument is not that this is not necessary sometimes, but in most cases I don't think this should be first course of action. A kind of maturity and level-headedness is lost on most Redditors, and this is especially not helpful when the recipient of advice is some 15-year-old girl. That you can't agree to disagree. There are far too many issues, policies, beliefs and lessons that we absorb as human beings. short of the other person being rude or hateful. Redditors as a whole don't know how to accept another view contrary to theirs. Those people who make introversion out to be an excuse for some pretty terrible antisocial misanthropic unacceptable behavior. I don't like loud spaces and can feel overwhelmed by crowds of people. I would pay not to go to a concert. I also genuinely love the people in my life and will always make time for anyone who needs me. In my experience, this is true for everyone, extroverts and introverts alike. The sheer amount of sexism on Reddit is absolutely sickening. That if you spend a lot on your wedding you are an idiot. Some people like big weddings and can afford it, but Reddit loves to poo-poo other people's fun because they enjoy their misery. Oh, that's an easy one. And spans every subreddit. The idea that an opposing opinion is wrong. The I am right this ass clown is clearly uninformed misinformed attitude is in every sub I've been to. To make matters worse, the dismissal of opposing dissenting opinion is reinforced by mods. They don't like what you say? That's a ban. This creates an echo chamber, which even further divides. Depression and self-hatred. Most of the meme pages make fun of this stuff. It is okay to make fun of yourself and some problems we as humans have. But after a while it's not that funny anymore. And let's be real. Most people here live wonderful lives without problems. Being a teenager and having to go to school is not a real problem. Most of the people who have problems usually don't make fun of them or even talk about them. I just think things like this should be taken a bit more seriously. PS, if you have problems please seek help. I don't think it's funny and I respect you just as much. Edit. I wrote this walking home from school and did explaining exactly what I meant. Some of you might have misunderstood me. 1. I meant depression and real problems as two separate things. Real problems as in more serious stuff. Getting molested. Not having enough money for food. 2. Having a wonderful life is very relative. Each to their own. My parents don't have much money and I live in a itty dorm room, but I am healthy and happy and I think life is wonderful. Some aren't as privileged. 2.1. Most equals anything above 50%. 3. While some may be open about these kind of things, some aren't. Generally, the hate on teenage girls, or anyone who like popular things, it's so idiotic. Teenage girl can't have depression because she's being quirky. Teenage girl likes conventionally popular thing. She's a basic itch. Teenage girl is above average looking. She's a thought. Teenage girl complains about problem. Her problems aren't real and she's asking for attention. Teenage girls cannot possibly have it bad. Everyone believes teenage girls straight up with absolutely no doubt. I find this to be true everywhere. But the idea that if someone holds a different opinion to you they are automatically stupid, especially when it comes to politics. Many topics are much more intricate than the average Joe realizes and people are in comments getting absolutely furious instead of having reasonable discussions. I got downvoted a while back for telling people not to teach kids to do a rear naked chokehold, i.e. blood choke, if you do it wrong. Which is very likely for a kid due to how small their arms are. You will literally kill the person. I taught karate for 7 years and this was something we took very seriously, and yet a few armchair martial artists wrote a long-winded reply that made no sense and got me downvoted to oblivion. Edit. All I'll say is this. The potential danger is there, and a kid who's playing around or in a fight doesn't understand that. In execution it's not worth the risk of someone receiving trauma or dying. Your kids don't need to know how to do RNC, and if their gym or dojo thinks it's appropriate to teach it, find a new one. Failure to acknowledge any nuance or gray areas. People feel the need to go all in on one side for any issue. I think they feel they'll look weak or hurt their argument by relenting on any point, or having a discussion on any point. Using the word toxic and using it to describe anyone anything you don't like or don't agree with. Incels, MGTOW, white supremacy. So much sexism that the only answer to any kind of relationship problem is to immediately break up, even if it's a problem that could easily be solved with a simple conversation between partners. That whenever someone in your life isn't behaving perfectly or 100% supporting of you all the freaking time, you need to cut them out of your life because they are abusive and toxic. I'm curious how many families have been ruined by such destructive advice. That everything needs to be disagreed with. For every comment I see, there is always a contrarian devil's advocate response with twice the upvotes. I understand thinking for yourself, but most of the time it seems like people are just doing it to be original. That children are inherently a pain and wanted and loved. That so many Redditors are quick to condemn someone to death over things. For example, if someone driving does something they clearly shouldn't and cause an accident, I hope they died. If they died, good, duck them. Clean the gene pool. It never occurs to people that maybe some people just shouldn't drive, but they're otherwise just fine as people. I've had various rants with people hell-bent on denying the Holocaust on here. Really gets my blood boiling. All that incel lit that keeps popping up. Most Americans I know are nowhere as racist, dumb or fat as Reddit makes everyone else think. A good bunch of them are smart, hard-working people, and are also nowhere as extremist as to be considered far right, far left, etc. Reddit might be a huge echo chamber in politics, but at least the Americans I know have moderate views and are easygoing people. Socialism works. That standards in America should apply to everywhere else. Relationship advice. Do not make brash ducking decisions about your personal life after giving your side of the story to, mostly, a bunch of single people with minimal life experiences to judge your situation with ultimatums. People get more of a thrill knowing they contributed to stopping a relationship than saving one. Believe that. That working 50+ hours a week is something to be proud of. There is a lot of misogyny on Reddit. Sometimes it gets called out, but then you'll still also see all threads with sexist top comments. This happens a lot when a woman or group of women accomplish something. There will be a comment that tries to downplay the accomplishment or trying to discredit the women. If it's a woman displaying a feat of strength or athleticism, Doodlebrut in the comments will be like, I can still beat her up though lol. Any thread regarding the horrors of female genital mutilation will undoubtedly be taken over by men angry about male genital mutilation. If a woman shares her story on a safe part of Reddit but it blows up and hits all, there will be a lot of really disgusting comments on it. Female cosplayer posts always have overtly blatant sexual comments even when the cosplay isn't sexy. The biggest thing of all, Reddit really doesn't like it when you point out how sexist it is. Some of this stuff is more common than others, but Reddit really does have an issue with misogyny, and I'm sure if this comment gets seen by enough people, some people will downvote it or comment derisive things, but that just plays into my point. A YouTuber once said that Reddit is alt-right, but I would argue it's alt everything. Doesn't matter if it's politics, hobbies, professions, or whatever, you will usually see the most extreme opinions before the good ones. We have concentration camps. Neo-Nazis are everywhere as opposed to the same tiny portion of the population people laugh their balls off at watching the Blues Brothers in the early 80s, a time they were already a joke to the country. We can feed more people with a vegan diet. Nope. Oh. And people don't seem to know what the duck of fascist actually is. Every single political sub on this website. Reddit is now so far to the left that moderate views get you banned instantly from anything political. It controls the narrative now and silenced anything not on the left side. The site is opposite of free speech. Something that annoys me these days, and it extends far beyond Reddit, is the cult of hate for basically every kind of popular media. It's like every single thing has an extremely vocal mob shouting down anybody who dares to enjoy it. Full stop. The new Pokemon game. Oh man, our Pokemon is basically a hate sub at this point. Well, I'm playing it and it's exactly what you'd expect from the series. I have no idea what these people are talking about. Oh, and then there's Star Wars. Just read an article this morning hitting on The Mandalorian. Geez, that comments section gave me hemorrhoids. I'm super excited about that show, but apparently a lot people have written entire dissertations about why it causes more cancer than cigarettes. Especially frustrating to read these rants when the person writing admits they haven't watched it and never will, but they'll spread hate about it all day. I'm so looking forward to the movie next month, but I guess the defining characteristic of Star Wars fans is that they hate Star Wars. Not even gonna elaborate on Game of Thrones. And then just recently I read a bunch of entertainment articles hitting on this new Lord of the Rings TV series, which few details have even been announced yet. Last time I knew they haven't even publicized their casting for it. But that doesn't stop the hate train. The scathing reviews have already been written for a show that hasn't been filmed yet. Full stop. It bothers me. Makes me sad. Because I know a lot of people who won't watch these shows because the only thing they've heard is the outrage. And then when the actors get caught up in all the hate too. Being harassed on social media and even in real life. Even going so far as to say they regret being involved. That's awful.